It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon in January 2015. A small group of film students from New Zealand were hanging around outside their school near Auckland's old, half-forgotten Parnell railway station. They were filming casually, just killing time, laughing and joking around. One of them, a student named Chris Meir, was recording the footage you're seeing now. But what started as harmless fun would soon turn into something far more sinister. At first there was laughter, carefree, playful. But then they noticed something. Out in the tall, overgrown grass, just past the edge of the platform, two figures stood perfectly still. A man and a woman, both wearing unsettling, featureless white masks. The masks had no expression, no humanity, just those cold, hollow eye holes. And they were staring directly at the students, unmoving, silent, watching. For a moment, Chris and his friends thought it was just some weird prank, maybe other students from the school trying to creep them out. That's why you can hear them laughing in the video.
Oh, yeah, the video gets right converted now. That's funny.
But listen closer. That wasn't laughter born of humor. That was nervous laughter. The kind of laughter people make when they're trying to convince themselves they aren't terrified. But they were. They absolutely were. And then things got worse. Far worse. When they reviewed the footage later, something chilling became clear. One of the masked figures appeared to be holding a weapon. It looked like a handgun, gripped casually, pointed at the ground. For now.
Where's the other one? Where's the other one? I don't see him.
Where's the other one? I don't see him anymore. Their fear started to bubble over. The masked strangers weren't just watching now. They were moving, slowly, deliberately, getting closer. That was enough. The group turned and ran, bolted, back toward the main road without looking back. Somewhere in the distance, they heard the unmistakable thudding chop of helicopter blades approaching. Police? No one is exactly sure who called them. But the masked couple had already been terrorizing people across Auckland earlier that same week. One woman reported being stalked by them through Domain Park. She said they vanished into the trees just as the police arrived. No arrests were made. No names were given. Chris and his friends gave their report to police. Shortly after, the Auckland Police Department posted an eerie warning to the public online. If anyone sees these masked individuals, stay away. Whether their weapons are real or fake doesn't matter. They would treat every situation as a deadly threat, in a twist almost as strange as the encounter itself. The masked couple eventually came forward on their own, but even then, the police kept things quiet. No names released, no motives explained, no confirmation of whether the gun had been real. No answers. Just silence. All we know is this. It wasn't a harmless prank. It wasn't a joke. And those masked figures had nothing to do with the school. When people online tried to dismiss it as a publicity stunt, the school released a statement making it absolutely clear. Whoever those people were, they weren't students. They weren't known to anyone. They simply appeared and vanished. One article later suggested the weapons were fake, but no official source ever confirmed it. To this day, nobody really knows who they were, or why they were doing it, or what might have happened if Chris and his friends hadn't run. What is clear is that sometimes, when you see something staring out at you from the darkness behind a mask, it's best not to stick around long enough to find out what's underneath, because it might not be human. In March of 2019, in the quiet town of Fair Lawn, New Jersey, a 5-year-old girl was out playing with her friends near a small, peaceful creek tucked away in the woods behind her home just off Route 208. It was a place her family knew well. They had lived there for over 13 years. Her parents, Dave Kuroda, and his wife had always felt those woods were safe enough to let their daughter wander and explore. After all, what danger could possibly be lurking so close to home? But on that afternoon, something was waiting. Something unnatural hidden among the trees. The little girl came running back, breathless and pale. She told her father she had found something strange, something that shouldn't have been there, a pile of clothing, dumped in the woods. When Dave followed her back to the spot, his unease grew with every step. There, half buried in leaves and dirt, was a tattered bundle of women's clothing, shredded, torn, stained with something dark, something red. And these weren't clothes simply worn down by weather. The fabric looked as though it had been cut away, as if someone had violently ripped them from a body. Whatever stained them wasn't mud, not entirely. Dave knew this wasn't just litter. It wasn't some prank. Something about the scene felt wrong, deeply wrong. He called the Bergen County Sheriff's Office immediately. What reason could there possibly be for butchered, blood-stained clothing to appear in the woods right behind his house? Police arrived quickly. They examined the torn garments in silence, their faces tense. They confirmed it. These were women's clothes, and they'd been here for months. The excessive wear and rot explained the frayed edges, but it didn't explain the precise, violent cuts. It didn't explain the dark stains that seemed to tell a story no one wanted to hear. Detectives began asking the public for help. Could anyone identify these clothes? Had anyone seen something? Was there a missing person tied to this eerie discovery? Silence. No one came forward. No one claimed them. And here's where the horror deepens. Without a known victim, without evidence of a specific crime, the police couldn't even submit the clothes for forensic testing. The case was left hanging in limbo, a terrible question left unanswered beneath the trees. To this day, no one knows who those clothes belonged to. No one knows what happened in those woods. All we have are the bloodstains, and the suspicion that somewhere, someone never came home. Until those clothes can be matched to a face, the forest keeps its secret, and we can only hope it isn't the kind of secret that ends in screams beneath the dirt. Because something terrible happened out there, something the trees are still trying to forget. Near the base of Mount Fuji in Japan, hidden beneath a veil of fog and silence, there lies a forest known to locals by a name that sounds almost gentle, the Sea of Trees. But don't let that name fool you. There's nothing gentle about it. This forest grew out of hardened lava, a jagged wound left behind by Mount Fuji's last catastrophic eruption. Over time, trees clawed their way through the blackened earth, twisting themselves into an endless, suffocating labyrinth. But it's not the volcanic history that gives this place its reputation. It's something much darker. You see, the Sea of Trees is better known by another name, Aokigahara, Japan's suicide forest. For reasons no one fully understands, people are drawn to this place. They come to vanish. They come to die. Walk far enough into those woods, and you may find things you wish you hadn't. Discarded belongings, nooses tied to ancient trees, abandoned tents, and sometimes bodies. They say if you're quiet enough, you might even hear whispers trailing through the tangled undergrowth. Not the wind, something else. Near the forest's entrance, a sign pleads in Japanese. Quietly think once more of your parents, your siblings, your children. Please, don't suffer alone. First, reach out. But not everyone turns back. In July 2017, an urban explorer and YouTuber known as Burbex set out to film the forest. His viewers expected a standard exploration video. What they got was something much stranger, and much darker. At first, the footage feels harmless. The dense, suffocating green, the endless trees. But only minutes into his walk, Burbeck stumbles across something unsettling. An abandoned bicycle, almost new, almost untouched by weather, almost as if its owner had just stepped away and never returned.
I'm only a few meters away from the road right now, but I've already found an abandoned bike. It's actually a pretty nice bike. Let's take a look at it. I don't think it's been here a long time. What do we got in here? And there's a packet for a knife. I think I've just found some kind of note in a bag. It says 1211. I can't quite make out. I think this is somebody's name just here, and I'm not sure what this means.
I'm only a few meters from the road, Burbeck says, but I've already found this. He approaches cautiously. The bike feels wrong, like a relic from someone else's tragedy. In the basket, something waits. An empty knife box, a kitchen knife, gone. Then, a plastic bag, a scrap of handwriting scrawled in ink. It reads simply, 1211. Fujiyosha Police Station. Verified, a tag, an inventory note, the kind police use when they process evidence. Evidence left behind when someone disappears into the trees with no intention of coming back out. Burbex tries to brush it off. He keeps moving, deeper, but the deeper you go in Aokigahara, the heavier the air becomes. The forest swallows sound. Your thoughts start to unravel. Every step feels like walking across ground soaked in grief. They say the Japanese authorities have done what they can. Security cameras near the entrance. Volunteers trained to speak to those who seem troubled. They try to reach the lost before the forest does. But it isn't enough. The sea of trees still calls to people. It always has. And in recent years, the world's obsession, the media, the stories, the viral videos, has only made it worse. People go looking for ghosts, and some become them. How many have vanished beneath those trees? No one truly knows. But one thing is certain. If you ever find yourself standing at the edge of Aokigahara, turn back, because some forests don't just swallow people, they keep them. It was early 2023 when a man named David Meredith went out for what was supposed to be a peaceful, ordinary evening walk through his quiet neighborhood in Red Deer, Canada. The sun was slipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the trees. The streets were empty, silent. But as David rounded a familiar corner, something stopped him cold. There it was, a massive bull moose. Looming beneath a tree, its enormous frame half hidden in the fading light, lazily chewing on branches. David, curious but cautious, ducked behind a tree for a better look. But in that moment, something shifted. The moose turned, and its dark, empty eyes locked onto him. Without warning, the beast lowered its head and charged.
He just ran me up a tree.
If you've never seen a moose up close, you can't understand the terror. These aren't slow, lumbering creatures. A fully grown bull moose can run over 35 miles per hour, almost twice as fast as the average human, and when they charge, they aren't bluffing. They kill. David didn't waste time thinking. Instinct took over. Survival took over. He threw himself up the nearest tree, clawing his way onto a flimsy, narrow branch just beyond the reach of those razor-sharp antlers. Breathless, terrified, clinging to a branch that probably shouldn't have been holding his weight. Beneath him, the moose circled, staring. For 30 long seconds, David managed to fumble with his phone and start recording, capturing the nightmare below. You can hear it in the footage, his shaking breath, the creeping panic as the moose stared up at him, unmoving, calculating. Then it began pacing, back and forth, its massive head lowered in agitation, antlers ready. This wasn't curiosity anymore. This was something primal, territorial, dangerous. If David fell, if that branch snapped, it wouldn't hesitate. It would gore him without mercy. In an interview days later, David admitted he stayed up in that fragile tree for over 10 agonizing minutes as the animal circled below, waiting, testing. When asked how he climbed up so fast, he pointed out the thin, brittle branch he'd hauled himself onto, barely thick enough to support a child, let alone a grown man in blind panic. That branch shouldn't have held. If it had broken beneath him, well, this wouldn't be a story. It would be an obituary. Eventually, realizing its prey wasn't coming down, the moose snorted in frustration and finally wandered off into the trees. But David didn't come down right away. He waited and waited. Another 30 minutes, gripping the branch, heart pounding in his throat, listening for every crack of twig, every breath of wind. When he finally climbed down, the forest seemed to watch him, and though the moose was gone, the fear remained. Because sometimes nature doesn't need teeth or claws to kill you. Sometimes it just needs antlers and patience.